Hi there. Next, we are going to discuss about logical operators in Python. In the previous tutorial, we have discussed how we can use comparison operators to write different Boolean conditions, right? Sometimes we might want to combine multiple conditions to create a big complex condition. And in order to do that, we utilize logical operators in Python. So we have three logical operators: logical AND, logical OR, and logical NOT. And here these operands A and B are Boolean conditions, or you can say Boolean expressions, which result in true or false. Now, when it comes to logical AND, the expression A and B will be true only if both A comma B are true. If both these operands are true, then only the result will be true, or else the result will be false. And next we have logical OR. So when it comes to A or B, this will be true if at least one of A or B is true, or else it will be false, which means if both are false, the result will be false. But if at least one of them is true, your result will be true. And when it comes to logical NOT, it simply inverts the Boolean value of A. If A evaluates to true, NOT of A will give you false. If A evaluates to false, NOT of A will give you true. That's it. It just simply inverts the Boolean value. Now let's see some of these examples. Here we have three variables A, B, C with values 10, 30, and a string Python. So when it comes to first example, here we have A is equal to 10 or B less than 20. So these are the two operands and we have a logical OR operation between. So let's see the first condition. A equal to 10. Is it true? Yes, it is, right? So it will be true. Or B less than 20. Is B less than 20? No, it is false. So this will evaluate to false. So it will be true or false. One of the operands is true, right? So your result will be true. Next we have A less than 0 or B less than 0. A less than 0 is false because A is 10. B less than 0 is also false, right? So this is false or false. Both operands are false. So your output will be false. In the next example, we have A greater than 0, which is true. So this will be true and C equal to Python. So we are comparing value of C with this string Python. Now what is C? C is this particular string. Even though both these strings have value Python, but as you can see, this particular value has all the letters in uppercase, but here some of the characters are in lowercase. So these are not considered as same value. So this will evaluate to false and this was true. Now when it comes to AND operation, so it will be true only if both the operands are true. Here one of them is false, so your output will be false. Next we have B equal to 30, which is true. And here C equal to Python. So C is this Python and we are comparing it with a string, which is also Python. And as you can see, the case is also uppercase in both the strings. So this is considered equal, right? So this will evaluate to true. Both are true. True and true will give you true. The simple thing is when it comes to AND, it will be true only if both the operands are true. When it comes to OR, if at least one of them is true, the output will be true. Now in this example, we have logical NOT of this expression A greater than B minus 10. So what is A? A is 10. What is B minus 10? B is 30. So B minus 10 is 20. Is 10 greater than 20? No, it is not, right? So this will be false. Now, what is not? It will just invert the Boolean value. So this expression is not of false, which means it will give you true. It will just invert the Boolean value. Next, we have not of an expression A equal to 10 or B equal to 10. So what is A equal to 10? Is it true or false? It is true. And when it comes to B equal to 10, is it true or false? It is false, right? B is 30. So this will be false. So true or false will give you true. So this expression will evaluate to true. And what is not of true? It is false. So the output will be false. Now let's put these examples inside a Python program and verify the outputs. So what I've done here is I've created a Python file logical underscore operators under this operators folder, right? So we are keeping all the Python files related to Python operators in this folder, right? So I have created it. And here I have created three variables A, B, and C with values 10, 30, and Python. And we know that in Python, all the data values are stored in the form of an object, and variables are nothing but references to these objects which are stored in memory. So when you say value of A is 10, what we actually mean is this variable A will refer to an integer object with value 10 inside computer's memory. Similarly, when you say value of C is Python, what we actually mean is this variable C refers to a string object with value Python inside memory. Now, whenever we use these variables in our program, let's say we are using this variable C, it will fetch this string object Python, which is stored inside memory. So that's how variables work. We already discussed about this very clearly in the variables lecture, right? I just wanted to give a quick recap. All right, now these are the examples we discussed, right? And also when we write these kind of expressions, when we use these operators, it's a good practice to keep space around these operators. As you can see here, I kept a space, before and after this less than operator. Similarly here, I kept a space after this equal to operator. So instead of writing like this, you can always put a space so that the code becomes easy to read. In order to become a good programmer, it's very important that the code you write is easily readable for others. Also, one more thing is that when we use this logical not operator, it's always suggested to give a parenthesis for the expression for which we want to apply this not. Which means if we don't use this parenthesis, what happens is it will be something like this. Even though both of them represent the same expressions, but by putting these parentheses, it's much more easy to understand what's happening. It clearly indicates that we have a condition and we are applying a not to this condition. Also, what happens when we don't put parentheses here? Let's say without parentheses, it will be something like this. We'll just give a space and we write these two expressions. But there is an ambiguity here, right? Now, should Python apply this not to this first expression, or should the Python evaluate this whole expression and then apply not to it? So there are two cases possible, right? So there is some sort of ambiguity here. And also it turns out due to something called operator precedence, which we will discuss in future, Python actually apply this not to the first expression when you don't use this kind of parenthesis. So whenever we use not, it's always better to use parenthesis. Not just when applying this not, even while writing these conditions, if you want, you can even put a parenthesis in this way so that it will avoid any sort of confusion. All right, now let's run this code. Let me expand this. As you can see, we got these outputs, and just pause for a moment and you can verify we got the same outputs as we discussed. Now, there is one interesting behavior called short circuiting, which Python uses when we have and or operators. So what do we mean by short circuiting? Let's try to understand. So let's say that we have this kind of an expression A and B, and generally Python evaluates all the expressions from left to right, which means first it will evaluate A, then it will evaluate B, and then finds out what will be the value of A and B. But we know that when it comes to logical and, the result will be true only if both of them are true, only if A and B are true. So when Python evaluates this first operand A, and if it is false, irrespective of what will be the value of B, anyway the result will be false, because for this to be true, both of them should be true, right? If A is false, that's enough for us to say that the overall result is false. So when it evaluates and finds out A is false, it will not evaluate B and simply returns false. In that way, it is avoiding unnecessary computation of B. Now, what if A is true? We know that if A is true, that is not enough for us to say what will be the output. It depends on B, right? If B is also true, then overall result will be true. If B is false, the overall result will be false. So if A is true, then it will go and evaluate B and returns true if B is also true, right? Else it returns false. Now, similarly, if you take this expression A or B, so when it comes to logical OR, if one of the operands is true, the result will be true, isn't it? So when it evaluates from left to right, and once it sees that A is true, it is enough for Python to say that the result will be true. Even if B is true or false, the result will be true. So what it does is it will not evaluate B in this case if A is true and simply returns true. But if A is false, then it goes and evaluates B, and if B is true, then the overall result will be true. And if B is also false, then the result will be false. So it will go and evaluate B only if A is false. Now let's see how short circuiting works in case of chained AND expressions, which means sometimes we might have more than two conditions which are connected with AND operator, right? Like in this case, here we have A and B and C and D. Now, when we have these kind of chained AND expressions, the result will be true only if all operands, here in this case A, B, C, D, are true. If not, which means if at least one of them is false, the result will be false. So when Python evaluates this from left to right as usual, so as soon as it sees an operand which evaluates to false, it will return false without evaluating further. Let's say while evaluating, it finds out A is true. Next, it goes to B and it finds out B is false. Now, for this to be true, all of them should be true. If at least one of them is false, that's enough for Python to conclude the result will be false. So it will not evaluate these operands C and D. So it will just return this false. Now, in case if A is true, B is true, C is also true, then only it will go to D. And if D is also true, which means all of them are true, it will return a true value, right? It will not unnecessarily evaluate all the operands. It will do it only if necessary. Now, just like chained AND expressions, we can also have chained OR expressions like A or B or C or D. So for this expression to be true, if at least one of the operands is true, the result will be true, correct? Now, when Python starts evaluating this from left to right, as soon as it sees an operand which evaluates to true, it will return true without evaluating any further. Now, let's say that while evaluating, it finds out A is false and let's say B is true. Now, this is enough to say that overall value will be true, right? Because one of them is true is enough. So it will not evaluate C or D. So it will just return true in that case. Now let's see a real-time example where we can use logical operators. Let's assume that we are writing a Python program where we are taking details of a person and we have to determine if the person is eligible to vote. Now let's assume that in this scenario that this voting is for an election in India. All right. Now let's assume the eligibility criteria is the person should be at least 18 years old and the person's country of residence should be India. So what we can do in this situation is we can write an if statement with a condition that age should be greater than or equal to 18 and country equal to India. Because as per eligibility criteria, both these conditions should be true, right? Then only the person is eligible to vote. If this condition is true, then it will go and execute the statements inside if block. If the condition becomes false, if this becomes false, then it will evaluate statements in else block. Now, what will be the value of this condition? This will evaluate to false, right? Because age is 15. So age greater than or equal to 18 is false. Here we are using logical AND, right? So if this operand is false, it doesn't need to evaluate the rest of it. It will simply evaluate this whole expression value to false. So if it is false, it will go and execute the else statement. Here we're just simply printing, you're not eligible to vote. Now, when we execute this program, it will print you're not eligible to vote because this condition is false. Now I have added that example inside the code so that we can analyze the output. Also, one more thing I want to mention again is that when we are writing or combining multiple conditions, right? It is always better to wrap these individual conditions or expressions inside parentheses. That way it looks much more easy to understand what's happening. All right, now here we have Sachin's age as 15. So obviously this condition will fail and it will get inside the else block. Don't worry about the syntax of how to write if statements and all for now. I just want to show you this example. We are going to discuss about, all these conditional statements in great detail in future video. All right. So simply understand that when we write if statement, we give a condition. It can be a combination of multiple conditions as well. And if it is true, it will execute statements inside if block. If it is false, it will execute inside else block. So because age is 15, this will evaluate to false. So it will print you are not eligible to vote. Let me run this program. So it will print you are not eligible to vote. Now let's assume age is 30. Now what happens? Let's try to run this. Now this condition will become true, right? First it will evaluate the first condition, age greater than or equal to 18. It is true. Then it will go and also evaluate this expression, country equal to India, which is also true. So it will get inside if block. So it will print you are eligible to vote. I hope that with this you got a good clarity on how to use logical operators in Python. And when we discuss about conditional statements like if else or while writing conditions in while loops and all, we will come across logical operators again. Then you will see more real-time application of logical operators. All right, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.